Trigger warning, I'm going to be talking about sensitive content with adult themes. There is a woman who shared her story about having a train ran on her. And while I don't know about her situation specifically, I do have some thoughts that I would like to share around that. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. So as I shared before, she shared a story about having a train ran on her. And if you don't know what a train is where you're being intimate with someone, and you have where a woman's being intimate with a man, and then you have men that are lined up to also have their turn at having sex with you. So it's essentially one after the other, hence the name train. This woman, unfortunately, with the way that she shared her story, she found out through the comments that what she had actually experienced sounded more like sexual assault. And I'm here to talk about that. Having trains ran was a phenomenon that I first heard about in undergrad. It seemed to be something that was popular and common with the parties that people were having on college campuses, specifically frat house and sorority house parties. And I'm not going to argue and say that all fraternities and sororities are that are doing this. Because there can certainly be exceptions. Every college campus is different. I'm just saying that this was something I heard about in terms of being common in the college parties. And the way in which younger kids, college kids, would talk about them would be very casual and cavalier. And it would be like, oh, yeah, we're going to have this party and we're going to run this train on so and so and so and so. And, it would be guys and girls. And it would be this thing where it's like, okay, we know that this is kind of the expectation and what's going to happen on college campuses. There's going to be alcohol. There may even be things that are mixed in with alcohol. But all these things would be going on the college campus. It would almost occur as a way of like, if it would be set up in a way in which if you go to these parties, here are the expectations, and therefore if you show up at this party, you are consenting to what the expectations are at this party. And so there was always kind of like this rumor or this thing where people would sort of be chattering about it, and then girls would go, and then that would kind of be the end of that until the next party came along. And it was never something that was really stuck out to me as you know s- it was I couldn't get the appeal. But there were a lot of young people, unfortunately, that were looking for validation and acceptance and trying to acclimate into the college culture. And so they would acclimate by going to these parties and being part of a sisterhood or a brotherhood. It would be kind of like an initiation of sorts. And once initiated, it was a bonding experience, unfortunately, for many young people, where they're bonding over things that they didn't necessarily consent to in the moment, but people took it as applied consent when they agreed to come to this party and drink this drink, and anything goes. There's actually been movies that are kind of made, I feel like Lifetime movies and things like this, and I think they've kind of dulled it down. But this was something that's very casually talked about in just sort of an accepted understanding, even though things can and have gone too far with many young people. many young people, much like this woman, where she talked about, hey, I agreed to sex with one person, but then I woke up and there's like five other men standing around me, and I had no choice but to kind of comply and go along with it, right? And that is the story of many young people. And sometimes it could even extend over into men, having sex with each other and things like that. But this is the story of many young people where it's like, I'm in this situation, I'm unclothed, I'm in bed with somebody else already, and now I kind of have to go along with it because I'm here. And then there would sort of be, unfortunately, she sort of carried this with her and kind of had this realization after the fact. And I would say that it's very similar in how it showed up in college girls too, in the campus, and that 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, they're kind of, they were, doing this walk of shame back to their dorm room. And it was like, how did it go? I don't want to talk about it. Not how did the incident go, but how did such and such party go? And what was it? And it would be sort of this walk of shame back. Back to the dorm room or things like that. And depending on which college you go to and where you're at and what the school sort of reputation is, some of these parties have gotten really out of hand and a lot of people have gotten hurt behind that. But I think this speaks to a bigger issue in terms of consent, which we talked about a little bit with the voicemail, but also too with this whole train situation where you may have agreed to have sex with someone and then your drink was spiked, or now you may be having intimate relations with someone in a frat house or in their dorm room, and then all of a sudden you have all of these other people that have now entered the room in which you feel like you have to consent because now they're there and they don't have on their clothes. And it's just a situation that you feel like you really can't get out of, or that you may have blindly consented to by being in a situation. So if this happens to you, because I do know that it's something that is commonly occurs and has commonly occurred in college, definitely talk with a counselor. Definitely seek medical attention after this occurs, or call someone, but definitely go to the doctor, because that's also another place where people sort of learn about these trains, or in the if you have a college, what do they call, like a health center, like where you go see the doctor or the nurse practitioner and things like that. They also hear about those things secondary as well, but definitely inform them of what may be happening. It's good to be educated that, you might not have consented to sex with all these additional people. You might have consented to sex with only one person. You may have drank what you thought was alcohol, but then it turned out to be some other things mixed in with alcohol. You definitely want to report that and let people know that as soon as possible, that things happen, because this is considered assault. Things happened without your consent, without your knowledge. Even if you don't have a good memory of it, it's good to report it as soon as possible. Go to your health center or your local ER if you can, to get some assistance. And then they can direct you and, assist you in that way. It's very unfortunate what happened to this young lady, but it happens so much to many young people, many young women, and even young men sometimes, that they're not aware of what happens. But, I hope that this young lady is okay, as well as anybody else that this happens to. And take care until next time. Be well, like, comment, follow, and share. Thanks so much.